how to run a manufacturing facility while keeping your social distancing and having all of those different protocols in place to keep, a balance of your people safe, but your business continuing to move. So that certainly has been interesting.
Thank you. Can we go on to Susan then?
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Una, for organizing this. As Jim mentioned about his class of 2011, I'm a graduate of 1999 class. I'm dating myself a bit, but it's been an amazing experience that we had gone through LHA as well as what's happening now. I am the investment director at PSERS, Public School Employees Retirement System for Pennsylvania. So we serve over 500,000 teachers and school employees, and we are a defined benefit pension plan with the asset in the amount of $55 billion. And I'm responsible for managing about $13 billion of that. It's definitely an essential service, and because many of us can work from home, it hasn't been a huge transition. However, it has affected every one of us. In terms of why I love this job is that do you hear echo?
A little bit.
Okay, let me put on. Hopefully it's better.
It is, yeah.
Okay. I love the mission that PSERS carry. We serve the common good, and I love that. And also, I've been involved with this team for about 25 years, and we just celebrated 100th year. And being part of the legacy that it's been built on, it's been amazing. We are nationally recognized, a sophisticated, innovative U.S. pension fund. So just being part of building that for the last 25 years has been very rewarding.
Great, thank you. And Kristal.
Yes, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Pennsylvania State Police, definitely essential personnel. But what some of you may not understand is, or be aware of is, as the director of the Bureau of Forensic Services, in the beginning of this pandemic, not all of our people were deemed essential. And so a decision had to be made. And what I wanted to ensure was a sense of normalcy for the agency and for those troopers that are still out on the road doing the job day in and day out. So we made the decision to deem the lab personnel all essential so that we can ensure that when a trooper goes out to a crime scene, that they don't have to think about what days the lab would be open or where do I take this evidence. And so it's been interesting times for us, but certainly we are still doing that job day in and day out. And most importantly, we're taking care of the citizens of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And so that they know that there's always going to be that steadfast devotion to ensuring justice and safety in the Commonwealth.
Great, and we appreciate that. We appreciate all of you. I just want to take a side note to say a couple people have messaged me to say that the call closed at 100 attendees, which I don't understand because I purchased the plan that has unlimited attendees. I did click the record button as soon as I had Karen start with her introduction. And if you are talking with your folks, if you can let them know that it is being recorded, and we will share that recording with everyone. My apologies to that. I'll have to look into it. I don't understand why that happened, but for those of you who messaged me, please let your folks know. I'm sorry that they weren't able to get into the call. It is being recorded, and we will post it either on our website or social media so that they can see it as well. And I apologize about that. So ladies, panelists, we're all dealing with a huge amount of change and disruption right now, to varying degrees. With everyone on the call, we're in varying degrees of change and disruption. Can you talk to us about any best practices that you've experienced, or any advice that has helped you and your teams with staying motivated and staying productive during the changes?
I have a story to share. So, as we work closely with our coworkers, in a virtual sense, and as well as our family who is constantly with us, right? And I think in order for us to be constantly motivated and encouraged is to how to deal with some of the challenges that it comes with that. And I recently watched a video on culture shift called Unoffending Heart, and it just really resonated. So in that video, a pastor's wife had a dream, and she was standing in the corner of New York City, and this car pulled up, and basically 3 men came out, and they were just making really offensive comments and saying things like, "You are old," all these offensive comments. And she just started laughing, and she said, "You are unbelievable," just really complimentary. And then they came at her again with just saying, "You are stupid," like things to speak to her intellect. And she would laugh again, and she just said, "You are just amazing." And third time, these guys start to just say names, like it wasn't swearing, but just saying names. And again, she went back and just said, "You guys are coming up with all these creativity, where are you getting all this?" And then like a minute later, all these van pulled up, the cameraman showed up and said, "You've been in this game show called Insult, and you are the first winner." And she woke up from that dream. And I think it just teaches us a great lesson. How many times do we lose productivity because we're offended by either our coworkers or our family just making a comment? And sometimes you lose productivity because of it. And I just, that story really resonated with me, and I've been really using it at home as well as with my coworkers, because offense just come at us, right? And it's our choice to choose to combat that with power of encouraging words, that we can shift our culture, we can shift our atmosphere that's around us. And I just wanted to share, because it has been a powerful thing. When my daughter come at me with just, some trivial comments, sometimes I'll just say, "You are so amazing." And then she just turns back and go, "Wow, what did you eat today?" It's been amazing. So I wanted to share with the group.
We'll have to try that for sure. Thank you. Karen or Kristal?
I can add some thoughts to that too. I mean, I love the sense of humor, idea there, and I think you really have to find ways to laugh yourself through this. I like to think of the crazy sea of chaos that we're in, and we've got all these waves coming at us. A tsunami essentially just kind of knocks you into a whole nother world. But we can't stop those waves. So what are we doing? We're learning how to surf, how to improv on the go when you can't get your 100 participants in. We really are in that sort of ability to be flexible and agile in the moment. And I think that is really huge. I felt that have been feeling very thankful, because we did a lot of work at our company on a practical side, doing a cultural reboot over the last 2 years. And all of that legwork that we put in place, we call it Grit Matters, Perseverance, Heart, and Integrity. And all that work, and actually the behaviors and working together, and all the basically being a gardener, you're planting these seeds and growing people and getting everybody on the same page. Oh my, thank goodness I did that, because that has been huge. And I am really grateful, because my staff has stepped up and been amazing. And that has paid off more than I could have imagined. And I think that really helps me to stay inspired, because I think our people can really help us to be inspired to continue forward. And then on a practical note, to stay productive and manage this change, I have Karen techniques where I try to do attention management versus time management. Because in this day and age, especially when you're working from home and it's this whole different environment, I mean, you can be distracted by your email, your family, your dog, that my dog's barking in the background, your phone, you really have to have this discipline of kind of being single focused and controlling where your attention is. So it's been a challenge. There's a woman, Maura Thomas, who has a book called Personal Productivity Secrets that really talks to this, if anyone is interested in that. But yeah, I mean, it's learning to surf, figuring out how to keep focus, building upon the good foundational blocks that we had ahead of time. So it's a lot of different pieces coming together.
I could have used that attention management piece yesterday. I was having such a hard time focusing yesterday. Kristal, how about you?
I think it's important, at least when this thing first started off, it was important to me to know how my people were feeling about the situation and what they felt like they were going to be facing. And so we came together, I brought my leads in and we sat around the table and we talked about what we felt would keep the ship afloat, so to speak. And I think it's important that we allow our people to have input in situations. I think it's important that they also know that they are at the forefront of all decisions that are being made. When situations are changing and evolving daily and sometimes 2-3 times during the day, it is important that your people know and understand that any decisions that are going to be made, that they are number one and they are at the forefront of your decision-making process. And I think when they feel that and they know that, I think that's when they feel supported. And to go back to what Karen was saying, that's when they feel they get engaged and the productivity either stays the same or it increases. I can't tell you how appreciative I am to the people that work with us that support the Bureau, because they come in day out and they're facing, some of my people in the Bureau have family members that have been hit by this pandemic in a personal level, and we've worked through it and we support them through it. Also, one more small thing that I do, I think is important, is I try to send personal emails to my people at least every week so that they don't feel like they're out there on the island all by themselves. I have 6 labs all across the state. I can't be in each and every lab. But what I can do is sit there and send an email to them and say, hey, how you doing? Or if they're personally affected, I pick up the phone and I call and I say to them, what is it that you need from me? And so when they get that call from someone that they don't even feel like they could even talk to, I think that also makes them feel appreciated.
Absolutely.
To just add something, can I add something to Kristal's comment? I think that over communication, it's funny, I do 2 videos a week and a Friday email to all my staff. And I'm getting tired of watching myself on these videos that I'm putting together. And I'm like, do people really want to see this? But I was been checking with my leaders and with individual people in our company, and they really appreciate it. And I think as leaders, we have to realize that, yeah, the operational pieces of the things that you're doing are important, but right now that communication piece, that what's going on, the what's happening, making sure people feel that that they're there. I mean, it is so important, and I don't think it's a moment where we can over communicate. I think we need to really, just as much as we can as leaders, try to add that support, that calm and steady that Jim talked about. That's what we're trying to give people, that calm and steady in such a madness.
Agreed. We're all in this
Agree.
together.
Yeah, agree. There is such power in words. Words can either tear people down or it can build people up, right? And using words to really encourage has been a key to go through this.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I thought it was important to start with our current situation. The panelists had questions 2 months ago that they had prepared for, but really to start with the here and now and what we're going through, and I appreciate your comments on that, especially in the leadership positions that each of you hold. It's important to hear what you're doing and what's working, and so all of us can kind of incorporate some of those best practices. Um, Susan, since you're on the screen, I'd love for you to talk about the CFA distinction. And I know that you had told me there's not a lot of women who have that particular CFA distinction, and you're actually on a path to try to change that, especially with young women, right?
Yes, yes. Chartered Financial Analyst, CFA, is the highest distinction in investment profession. And in US, there are 16% female CFAs. That is way too low in percentage. And if you take out the women CFAs who are working in investor relations or supportive functions, you're talking less than 10% who are in the front line managing money. So in order to really change that, we need to change the pipeline. We need to change the mindset of girls, that a lot of girls are as early as in elementary school years that they're not good in math. So it's changing the mentality that society operates in, and also how girls are convinced to think. So actually the call that I had with you was to seek some sort of local sponsorship to launch this program called Rock the Street, Wall Street. And the program is to build that pipeline. And it's focused on high school girls. And we show them what finance career looks like. And then we mentor them and think through if they want to explore their career in finance and major in finance or economics or math. And in order to build that 16% to be in a much higher percentage, we need to build a pipeline. We need to work with unconscious bias that's in the society currently in ways to mobilize women in going up in promotion, as well as encouraging women to launch their own fund. So, you know, it's about in, up, and beyond. And that's the model that we are trying to use. So Peasers have been very supportive of this. I've been more or less awakened recently about this issue, because being an Asian American, no matter where I went, I was always a minority anyway. And I didn't really realize this was an issue until I was asked to speak at a conference on this issue, and realized, wow, you know, this is a pandemic in our industry. If you don't have women in your management team, and actually I could argue all levels, you're running with one hand behind, and that's not, you're not going to run optimally. So it's about building a team with diverse perspective. In order to do that, we need to raise up women in a very intentional way.
Yeah, I love that perspective. And for anyone who's in the meeting who might work with young women, or who might have a daughter, or mentoring young women, how do we change that dynamic? What can we do to encourage their exploration of the finance industries?
It's really hard because there are so many barriers currently. But there is a tidal wave that is happening, at least in investment industry, that I can see. And there are, even in conferences, people are asking women to be included. In a lot of cases, the conference can be run with just male speakers. So it's about being aware of your unconscious bias that's in the society, and being intentional about honoring women around you who have persevered, because without perseverance, you wouldn't be standing today. And it's not about just leaders launching certain programs. It's about every one of us honoring women around and men around us to be the best people that we could be.
Thank you. And I don't think that it's always intentional that there might be a conference and you don't see any female speakers. I'm not convinced that people are intentionally ruling women out, but they are not intentionally bringing women in.
Right.
And we have a voice in that. I used my voice recently when I got a speaker. I got an announcement for an upcoming event, and there were no females on the agenda. And so I responded to that organization and said, I can't believe that there was not a single female who could be represented in this topic. And I can't believe that they would send it out knowing that, there were no females. And they revised it, worked to get someone on the panel, and sent out a new description. So we all have a voice in that, and we should use our voice when we see that happening. Thank
We're all
you.
role models. We're all role models. And those of us
Yes.
that are realizing that we didn't really notice that perhaps we were few amongst the rank, we need to speak up and tell our stories. I want to hear the stories of
Yes.
everyone, not just women, but it is important that we as women are willing to get out there and share our stories. That's how we become panelists, how we get a part of the community. So I think it's super important. Good
Yeah.
message.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have to confess that when they first asked me to speak back in September of 2017, here I am very courageous. I have launched many unconventional strategies at PGers. And to do that, you have to do a lot of courageous things. To do something it's undone in other US pension funds. But I realized when they asked me to speak, it was a different part of fear that I was facing. When they asked me to speak in front of 800 people, I was like, wow, I don't know if I want to do this. But, me being Christian, I just asked the Lord, and Lord said, it takes courage for you to follow me. And I said, okay, I'm going to say yes. And since then, since I spoke that event, that year in 2018, I spoke 8 different conferences. Like you said, Karen, once you speak, they want you to speak in other events, and they're always looking for women speakers too. And I spoke in 8 different conferences that year in 4 different countries. And last year I was the international speaker in Australia, speaking about how PGers build a very unconventional way of building their investment construction. And it took something. There was such a blessing. It comes out of partnering with courage and say no to fear.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And speaking of courage, Kristal, one might assume that you have to be really tough and have a lot of courage to be in the field that you're in. Can you talk about how courage factors into your job, and what characteristic would you say has served you the best in a male-dominated field?
One of my favorite quotes is by Marianne Williamson, and it says, "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure." One of the things that I believe that has served me well is humility. As I decided to become a Pennsylvania State Trooper, I knew what my strengths were, I knew what my weaknesses were, but I also knew that I had something unique and special to offer this organization. Communication skills, common sense, the fact that I meet people where they are. I have a background in correction, so I have an ability to communicate in ways that some other people cannot. And I'm always open and honest and just about and transparent in everything that I do. So, courage, yes, absolutely. I had to have a whole lot of courage when I was running up those hills. Okay. But I think what was most daunting for me was going into an organization that is 90+% white male, with the rest being minority male and female. So you're talking 9%, and I'm just estimating. Somebody don't go look it up later and say you got your percentages wrong, but I'm right in the area. But those were some of the daunting tasks. But when I got in there and I looked around and I said, you know what? I'm just as good in this position as anyone else, and I have some things to offer. There's some things that uh, police work needs that they don't think about that I do. And I believe that I have something to bring to the table. A lot of times we diminish ourselves because we think that we don't have what's necessary, the tools, the skill set, the knowledge to enhance an organization. When we're going out seeking these positions, we should be thinking about what we bring to the table that enhances that organization, okay? Because, you know, with an organization about 6,500 people strong, that's enlisted and civilian, you know, it can be daunting to think that, oh my God, I'm just gonna go and be a piece of the puzzle. I submit to you that you say you go and be the puzzle. Let me go and show you different ways and how we can enhance our abilities and make the organization better. That's what we really all should be thinking about in everything that we do. How do we go and make the organization or the system or the business that we're doing better?
Thank you for that. And just, you know, when you were speaking about it, it reminded me of another woman in a leadership position who did some research that found in most cases when a job position or a job announcement comes across, when a male looks at that job announcement, he looks at it and says, oh, I can do that, even if he's underqualified. When a female looks at the same job announcement, she says automatically, I don't know if I'm quite qualified for that. Speak to that, Kristal.
Well, that is so, I've seen it. I've actually witnessed it myself, where I'm going out and I'm speaking to groups of young ladies and trying to encourage them to take a look at the Pennsylvania State Police and come in and take on this role. And the first thing they think is, I can't do that. Or do I have to wear this or that? And I'm saying to them, I'm no different than you are. And no, you don't have to be 6'5" and 250 pounds to do this job. You know, I've talked more people into handcuffs than I have been putting my hands on. So I'm telling them that you have the tools and we need them. Women have unique ability and a unique skill set when it comes to policing. And it's amazing how we're able to go into situations and de-escalate situations. If you look at the statistics, you'll know that when women are engaged, there's less physical force that is involved. People actually leave alive. So it is important, it is imperative that women consider these professions that have often been touted just for men. And yes, you're right. But you know what? I also want to touch on some of my greatest mentors and role models were men.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, all these men that I'm looking at on the screen that are engaged here with us today, I had some great role models that were men. They were the ones that came to me and said, I see something in you. You should participate in the promotion process. Hey, I will help you. I will give you tips and tools to show you how to study. I will show you how to navigate the process. And I was so appreciative of that, because when you go into a male-dominated profession, you believe that they speak a different language sometimes. And when you have a male mentor that's showing you the way, oh my God, that empowers you even more. So men, it is imperative and important that you all engage females and mentor them so that they can move up into those levels of leadership in these organizations as well.
I love that you just said that. I really do. Thank you. Karen, in taking over the family business, I know you've incorporated a lot of things to do things in your own way, but how have you dealt with the we've always done it this way mentality, and how did you fight those I hate to say fight those battles, but how did you overcome the challenges of bringing your own leadership style into an organization that had been run by other members of your family?
So It's interesting. I'm very fortunate. The culture and the company that my father created really is great. And so when I came in as a leader, I had great foundations to build upon. But you're right, I kind of had to put my own stamp on it. And I think in order to cultivate change in general, you have to, I go back to this comment of being the gardener, right? I sprinkle seeds around. I nurture them. I help people kind of come to the idea and let them try on ideas as we move into new change or having me as the leader. As I learned that it was my job to really create this environment where everybody thrives, the big thing that we had to do was reboot our culture. And that cultural reboot, which was just a translation, a recalibration, I call it our sunstone. My father's an immigrant from Norway. So the Vikings used a sunstone to find the sun when the sky was cloudy. So we have this sunstone of who we are. We recalibrated it, who we are, where we're headed, and what's going on. So once I did that, that was one sort of block. Empowering people, building relationships with people, building trust, letting them know that I really do believe that our people are the most important thing. And I think laying all of those foundational pieces, tilling the soil, getting it ready, planting the seeds, and now we're really growing and harvesting, and we're able to make some of these incredible changes and thinking differently. And it kind of all ties into everything we've been talking about. I mean, I'm a big believer in a problem solving culture. And, to go back to the whole female women thing for a moment, it's really important for any business to work on having diversity. And let's just go with diversity of thought. Right? We want people to think differently. If we're going to solve a problem, we need to look at it from multiple different angles. If you only have two people who have the same perspective, you're certainly not going to see the whole breadth of the issue. Having women in your organization is just one way of adding to that cognitive diversity if you don't already have them there. And my goodness, wouldn't we be a better place and better businesses if we have that ability to just solve problems better? And in addition to that, we all need to get comfortable being uncomfortable. I think that's already happening. That's where growth happens. That's where change comes. And for me, I stick to that of instead of running away from the uncomfortability, I head towards it and really cultivating. Our cultural reboot is called grit. I rely on my own personal grit of just perseverance. I'm just going to keep going towards it, getting to the goal, know where I'm at, working around the obstacles, and it's fun. So I do enjoy it too.
It's interesting to hear you talk about problem solving, because when I came out to your building a year or two ago, or whenever that was, I was expecting cranes like you see, maybe when a building is happening. But the cranes that you are dealing with are moving, space shuttle size equipment. Can you talk about the capacity of what you're doing in your company? I find it so fascinating. Talk about some of the big jobs that you've done, just to give everybody a picture of what we're talking about here.
Yeah, so what we build, while similar to mobile cranes that everybody sees on the road or in construction, what we build is machinery, overhead lifting equipment that goes into the ceiling. So it's running on rails inside of a manufacturing facility or a nuclear power plant. And our equipment is used from everything from moving the Orion spacecraft, which is part of the deep space mission for NASA. So they have a specialty clean room crane that is installed in their facility down on the Cape. It's the same building as Apollo, so I'm a space geek, so I love that. So it's really exciting. And the engineering that goes into that's not something that you just take off the shelf. Our team of engineers has to figure out how to make it fit. How do we solve the issues with dust and particles? How do we fit it in? What is the speed they need to be able to move to the point of being able to crack an egg? How do we solve all of those problems? Our equipment is also used in nuclear power plants. So we move spent fuel for power plants in their fuel pool rooms. We also do turbine crane upgrades. So very precise movements. And you might be taking an old piece of equipment and upgrading it. So you've got to solve the problem. How can you give them the capacity they want, the lift that they want, all those different pieces, which again, I think it's kind of fun. We even lift fish. We have a crane that is used as part of a process to move salmon upriver and downriver around a hydro plant. And,
Wow.
it's just, some of the fun, really fun problems that we get to solve. It's really, I really believe we make beautiful machinery, and I'm just really proud of all of our people, and our quality and expertise shines through. And I think we have a good time doing it. It's that problem solving mentality it's a nice place to be. I'm really, really proud of all of our people.
I'm proud to have your organization in this region, and I wanted you to take a minute to really describe that, to just let everybody know this is here in Central PA. This is part of our community and our culture, and it's bringing an international dynamic to who we are as an organization. Leanne, I think I see your hand up. Do you have a question, or was that from earlier? Okay, all right, that was from earlier. So I have one last question, and then I think we'll have a few minutes to open it up to maybe one or two questions from the participants. I had talked to all of you about the iceberg theory. Like, we see the tip of the iceberg. We see your success. We see who you are today. Strong, brilliant, bold, and brave women doing amazing things in your organizations, in your community. We don't see what's happening underneath the water. What that iceberg is so deep. What's happening under the water? What keeps you going as leaders that we don't see? Where do you draw your source of energy, inspiration, motivation? If each of you could address that. Susan, you're on my speaker screen. Do you want to go first?
Sure. I have to say it is my faith. I trust the goodness and faithfulness of God, and that I am strategically located where I am to bring light, and having that mind, that heart that is full of thankfulness regardless of all the adversity that you have to go through. I think that just keeps me very anchored. And I I have two college age daughters, and for me as a parent, as a mom, I believe that's the secret to my success. So that's what I try to impart to them, because it's not, I used to think, oh, teaching them algebra will be, the tool, but I realized, no, it is faith. It is what anchors me. Whatever anchors you is what's going to remain at the end, especially when you're going through a tremendous shaking. And for me, it's about having that thankful heart always. The quote that I love is, thankfulness always precedes a miracle. And because when you have that thankful heart, you're in that state of peace, and from that state of peace, you can see everything from different perspective. And life is about having the right perspective. Are you going to bring the right perspective to everything that you do, or are you going to come to it with filtered perspective that is actually negative? And thankfulness always brought me to be at a place of peace where I can make good decisions, I can persevere, and just keep on going. So this is just part of it. This going through this pandemic has been a part of it, to realize how being anchored is so important.
Thank you. Ladies, who's next?
I can go if you want. So you talk about the challenges in the iceberg. So originally, I never even wanted to be a part of my dad's business. Manufacturing. What is this industry? I was very reluctant to come into it, and if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have basically had the best job I've ever had. I love what I do. I've been there for over 17 years, and through it, I found my passion. Right, and I'm very passionate about manufacturing, and what my dad has done has really inspired me to try to be and fill his shoes. And that provides motivation. And I love this concept too of gratitude. I think is really important and helps you to continue and to move on. I think sort of this grit and gratitude combination of I'm going to persevere. I'm going to overcome the obstacles that lie in the way. But I'm going to do it with an open heart, and I'm going to do it with gratitude and with humility. I think those are really, really important things. And then also, you know, as you're doing this, you need to constantly prepare. So that iceberg, I like to think of it as, you know, there's probably a lot of preparation and work that we have all done, a lot of planting and growing and cultivating. I like to think of myself as both a warrior, a Viking, and a gardener, right? A farmer. So on the warrior side, I'm sharpening my weapons, right? I'm everything I can do to learn, constantly being curious, sharpening my brain, my skills, but you know, all that kind of stuff. And then, you know, on the other side, I'm gardening, I'm planting, I'm growing people, I'm you know, putting all that legwork in. It takes a long time to grow ideas, people, to grow yourself. To plant a garden is to believe in tomorrow. That is a long-term commitment. But I think if you can combine these ideas of how you move forward, you know, the key is also having passion. It's really important. If everybody would find a job that they are passionate about, whatever that is, and have the opportunity to see the breadth, whether it's becoming a state trooper, working in manufacturing, being in finance, whether male, female, you know, whatever the background, if we can allow people to have the full breadth of opportunity to see what's out there and let them choose what they are passionate about, my goodness, are great things going to happen, because that is also part of that fire and energy that makes us inspired to just keep fighting and keep overcoming and keep, you know, it makes it fun, right? We can't take ourselves too seriously. We got to have a good time doing this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I just want to share quickly, the Harvard Business School did a study of what is the key to success. You know, you think, oh, when you graduate from Harvard, everyone will be successful. Actually, that's not true. And they found the key to success was adaptability. So you can have a breakup relationship. One person can write a song about it, and the other person can commit suicide. So it's about the adaptability, and how can you have that mindset of adaptability?
Thank you. And Kristal, what's going on underneath the underneath the tip of the iceberg in your world?
Wow. Okay. So I come from humble beginnings. I mean, I remember going to the bathroom, not having running water, going to the bathroom in a chamber pot. It's important for me to always remember where I've come from. It's also important for me to always see myself in others. And what I mean by that is, you know, when we attain positions or stature or status, it's important for us to remember where we started. So as I'm walking through the building and, I appreciate being saluted and all those other things, I'm looking to talk to the person that's cleaning the bathroom that day so that I can find out, how are you doing? How are you managing? How is your family doing? Is there anything that I can do for you? I make it a point to get to know everyone that I encounter and engage with on a daily basis. And I know them by name. And I allow them, my door is always open. I allow anyone, no matter where they work at, to come in and speak to me. It is important for me to remember where I come from, because if you know where you come from, then you can see where you're going. I am just so appreciative and humble to be able to have risen the ranks of the Pennsylvania State Police so that I can lead others to do the same. There was a time where people that looked like me, they would get the application and they would throw it in a trash can. It is incumbent upon someone like me to ensure that that never happens again. That's what I believe. That's how the iceberg works for me. I always reach back. Like as I'm climbing, my hand is out because I'm holding somebody's hand that I'm taking them with me.
I love that.
That's excellent. Thank you. So we have just a little over 5 minutes left. If someone has a question, I think the easiest way for me to see it is if you type it in the chat.
Can I say something quick?
Yes,
Kristal's comment there. Well, there's a quote from Mother Teresa that says, "I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone across the waters and create many ripples." Kristal is talking about creating ripples, and
Yes.
touching people, and really, being a role model, and spreading those seeds so, mighty trees can grow. And there's always somebody looking up to you, and I'm sure everybody on this call is a role model. You don't think you
Yes.
are. I argue that you already are. And those small moments of interaction, or being a role model, or being humble and interacting, are so huge.
Yeah.
I love that.
Thank you.
Everything we do will matter for the next generation.
Absolutely. Karen, that quote that you said, Leadership Harrisburg Area actually has that on a painting that we bring out to events.
Good.
Love that. Love
that.
Who has a question? I have more. This is your chance. Well, I will ask each one of you, who do you most admire and why?
I'll go first. My mom. She is most adaptable person I know. She has gone through lots of different trials.
Oh.
But she is absolutely amazing. She's the one who taught me about faith and how to persevere and to bring joy. I mean, I call her almost every time I call her, she greets me with this. Oh my gosh, what an honor it is that my daughter called me today. Like, and she doesn't say that in a way to make me feel guilty, but she just her heart is always so full of joy and thanks. And I just love the example that she set for me. She only had education up to second grade. That's all she was able to get. I'm from South Korea, and I came when I was 16 with my parents. And yeah, and she just the way she lives, you will never be able to tell, because she is so full of joy all the time, and she is so adaptable. I admire her.
Thank you so much, Susan. Thanks for going there. Karen, are you going to follow that?
Well, I mean, it's my father is my biggest, the person I admire most. He's also an immigrant. He came to the U.S. in his 20s from Norway. He was from an island off the coast in southern Norway, and his parents had died when he was very young, and really didn't have anything. And he worked his way up, and just eventually landed with American Crane, and turned it from a struggling business into this thriving enterprise. And everything great that I had, in my life really came from his struggles and his perseverance. So I'm just, really fortunate to have him as a role model and a mentor. And I could get teary-eyed too. I'm trying not to.
Thank you. Kristal?
Yes, we're going to stay away from tears, okay? So listen, I have many mentors and many role models, but I just want to, right now I have this ongoing love affair with my 3-year-old niece, and her name is Parker. And what I love about Parker is her spirit, is her drive. I can remember as a little girl just saying whatever I wanted to say, and being bold and being just fearless. And that's who Parker is. And that's what I admire the most about her as a little girl. She is bold and fearless. And, I can remember a time where my fearlessness and my boldness was tamped down. And what I try to do with Parker is I try to build it up, and I let her just grow and blossom to a point where she just gets uncorked and she explodes. And then we kind of have to pull her back a little bit. But that's what I love. I love that about her, and I love that about children. And so when I see someone being bold and just just becoming that flower. That's what I love to see. So
Yeah.
right now, that's who I am. That's my girl. If anybody knows me, they'll tell you, no, I tell you, there's nothing you can say about my Parker. That's my.
I love that story. Thank you so much. Ladies, gosh, this has been a great and a very quick hour. Thank you for really sharing your stories with us, enlightening us, and inspiring us. I can see from the comments that were coming up and down the screen, people, just your messages resonated with the people on the call, and I appreciate that and want to thank you so much. I also want to thank again our sponsors, PNC Bank and UPMC Pinnacle, for sponsoring today's event. I want to share our screen one more time that has some of Leadership Harrisburg Area corporate shareholders, just to give them a shout out for their support of us and everything we do as an organization. I owe a big apology to anyone who was left off the call, and I will certainly remedy that by sharing the recording of this and sending it out. That was some kind of a glitch. I'm not sure why that happened, but I will clearly convey that apology to everyone who was not able to join the call. And I do hope you'll stay in touch with Leadership Harrisburg Area, stay in touch with each other and support each other, and continue to be brilliant, bold, and brave women. Thank you all so much for participating.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bless you, everyone.
Thank you.